welcome to Degree and Me, where we highlight a specific major each week. I'm your host, Christabel, and today's major is Forensic Chemistry with Professor of Chemistry and Chair, Dr. Haynes, as well as student, Katherine Gregory. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Okay, so the first set of questions is going to be towards you, Dr. Haynes. Okay, so how long have you been here with Sam Houston State University?
I've been here about 12 years, though time flies. It seems like yesterday.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. We have a loyal professor, huh?
Yeah,
Very
I have a lot
loyal.
of them here.
Nice. So where did you go to college and what exactly did you major in?
Yeah, so I went to Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas. I got my bachelor's in biochemistry, which took me about 4.5 years. It takes a while with all the labs and the sciences.
Gotcha.
And stayed on for my PhD in chemistry. After you do a PhD, you do a postdoctoral fellowship to get more training. And I went to UT Southwestern Medical Center up in Dallas and went to the medical school for a couple of years to do research there. And then a faculty position at UT Dallas before I came to SAM.
Oh, wow. I love it. I love it. Do you have any outside work experience besides like in forensic chemistry?
No, really, my interest in forensic chemistry happened after I arrived on campus, and we had so many enthusiastic students wanting to do research at the body farm and do other things, and so I kind of got pulled in. My background had some toxicology background. I'm an enzymologist and study enzymes of drug metabolism up to that point and how they work.
Oh, wow.
But that meant I had tools and skills that I could apply at the body farm when some biologists had a need for a chemist to help them with some things, and we got started that way.
Gotcha. Okay, that's very nice to hear. What are some interesting aspects of the major?
You know, it's really probably the enthusiasm of the students is a big part of it, right? Because these are science students who really, they want to do this and they haven't had that much science yet when they start, but they really want to do, they know what they want to end up doing to a big, large extent. It takes a lot of work to get there, and so what's interesting varies person to person, but you learn a lot of different things, and different things catch people's interest differently. I think in general, learning the tricks and the tools to take things that we can't see, because that's a lot of what a chemist does, right? We can't really see any of this stuff we do day to day, not like the molecules and things, and figuring out how you can either imagine them or visualize those things is a big part of it.
Gotcha. A lot of detail.
There's
on
a lot of
everything.
detail to master on the way through. And partially, it is a very hard major, partially because there's a lot of safety concerns also, right? You really need to know your stuff if you're going to work with cyanide and see if somebody's poisoned or things like that. And so it really takes a lot of training to do it.
Oh, yeah, I bet. So what kind of jobs can you attain with this degree?
So the degree, the primary goal is really crime lab work. So doing CSI work, taking evidence, going to the crime lab, analyzing evidence at a crime lab, and that's kind of what a lot of our, number of our alumni do. We do have people who do other careers. Some people go to ICE or the FBI and do some law enforcement things that way. We've had alumni of the program in general, so we have multiple degrees. This is one of them. Go to work for government contractors working with nuclear weapons facilities.
Oh, wow.
We have some people go to do fighting potential terrorist attacks. So we have alumni, for example, at the U.S. Army Medical Institute for Chemical Defense, and they work on testing and developing treatments if there was a cyanide poisoning attack, either a terrorist attack or chemical warfare on troops.
Wow.
How do we keep people from dying in mass numbers in cases like that? So not
Wow.
traditional forensics, but it definitely overlaps with a lot of the things you learn doing this.
That's awesome. I really had no idea. I felt like it was really just in the medical field, but it's like so intricate in like other industries. I guess that was my next question is like, what other industries can you take this major in?
Do they work at? Yeah, and partially that's, forensics is really just, the word just means application of science to crime and investigating crime, right? And so there's a range of things. Clearly the biggest central one is forensic science institutes, law enforcement, working with police departments, doing forensic analysis. In terms of the specific kinds of things they do, it ranges from toxicology, so there are people who test poisons, develop methods to see if somebody was knocked out with a given drug. People do fingerprint analysis, trace evidence analysis. Also the firearm, blood splatter, things like that are all things people can end up doing, or we've had different alumni do doing this.
Wow. That's awesome. I guess because some students can have a tunnel vision, like, oh, this is what I need to do. Like, it's very specific. That's awesome to hear that, like, it's in different industries as well. So that's good to hear.
And the degree does have a built-in backup plan. You were trained to do general chemistry jobs, so it's competitive to get into some of these positions. Lots of people want to be CSIs. They see it on TV and stuff, right? But for people who don't do well enough to get into that dream job that they want, they're trained to do a whole bunch of more practical jobs out there also.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kind of like not plan B, but also like there's like a safety net for you. Gotcha. So this is kind of like a personal question.
Okay.
What would you tell your younger self?
You know, I'm an advisor also, so I talk to students all day long giving them advice, and so probably that affects how I think about that. But in general, just understand that you have to make a decision at many steps along the way, and you're not going to know if it's the right decision, and that's okay. It just is what it is, and you may never know if it was the right decision. But most people end up, if you keep working towards things that you want to do and being interested and curious, you end up in a good place.
Yeah, commitment. That kind of coincides with my next question. Is there any like specific advice that you'd give students considering this major?
Probably one of the most important things to understand coming in that people don't sometimes. This is one of the hardest majors in college. I mean, when Harvard ranks majors, they'll rank architecture, then chemical engineering, then chemistry. And so what that means is not, hey, you should be scared unless you're a top student, don't do it. Anybody can learn to do this, but you have to come in understanding it's going to take more work than most college classes every semester to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like science, you have to be very committed to it, and it could be very. I have friends that are wanting to go into the medical industry, and so he's just telling me all the time how much homework he has, and just basically he has to stay committed to it and positive about it because it can be overwhelming. And I have a lot of respect for science majors because it's like I find science kind of hard, and so I just respect them because like it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of brain power. So it's like it's definitely hard. So I can get what you're saying with that.
I didn't mention this a while ago, but medical examiners, we do have some people want to be medical examiners, although forensic chemistry is one of a few majors we have that those folks go through, but we have some that go through the forensic chemistry program.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. Katherine, you're up next. So what specifically attracted you to pursue this major?
Well, previously I had graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice because I'd always wanted to go into the law side of things. I'd originally wanted to be in policing. I worked a few years as a correctional officer in TDCJ, and I'm now a 911 dispatcher. And kind of getting my hands dirty, so to speak, and actually getting into it has kind of changed my focus. And I've realized that I really enjoy more of the forensic side of things. Okay. And of course, I was an avid fan of, like Forensic Files growing up, because that was huge when I was growing up. And I've just kind of gravitated towards that, and that's what made my decision to come back for forensic chemistry.
Gotcha. So what do you plan to do with this degree, like, further on?
Well, I hope to get on with a crime lab. I'm kind of shooting for like the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Okay. And I really want to do like firearms examining. Gotcha. And stuff like serial restoration and things of that nature.
Okay, I'm from Dallas, so I totally support that. Okay, so what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to not doubt what I wanted to do. Yeah. And that I should have gone with my first decision, or my gut instinct of what I wanted my major to be to begin with.
So what was it exactly?
It was, I did want to go into a science degree, but then I changed it and just went the pure criminal justice route.
Gotcha.
Because I kind of doubted my ability to do it at the time, even though I was always a really good student. I just didn't think, because finances and other things that were going on at the time in my life, I'd recently lost a parent and everything else, that I kind of wanted to go with something not necessarily easier, but something that I knew for a fact I would enjoy. And that's the road I chose.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. Okay, so you did give us a little information about a student thesis. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Okay, and so the project that we have a couple pictures for is from a master's in chemistry thesis, but we have teams of undergraduates in forensic chemistry that do body farm work over the years in my lab also. And that meant we were positioned, and I got a phone call one day that said, hey, I'd like you to come to a meeting on Tuesday. By the way, there'll be astronauts there. And I was trying to figure out, how does all this work, right? Because you don't think of NASA and the body farm, but they had a project. And basically, the short version is they needed to test body bags, because as you get more and more people in space, you start to realize, what do we do if we need to do forensics because somebody dies and we can't get a team there of CSIs, right, to the space station or to the moon. And how do you deal with this sort of thing? And then there is a separate problem they were concerned about, and that is to get the body back to ground, it's going to take a lot of time, and there's not freezers to store this body in like you would on the ground. Also, you then have to have that body ride in a seat next to a living astronaut that was their coworker, which means there's a lot of special concerns. And so they had us actually test body bags and test which one worked the best to contain odors and toxins, because if you have people in a confined space, right, I don't know how many people have smelled, rot and decay. Human rot and decay is even worse, more noxious for us, and that prevents a lot of psychological issues and other things potentially.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Haynes
Okay.
and Katherine.
Yes.
Seriously, that was awesome. Tune in next time when we sit down with Department Chair Tom Pryor to highlight theater and musical theater.